Hi everyone, spydiechick here. Today we're going to be talking about the MKM Isonzo. Let's first get some context and do a size comparison. Here it is with a Griptilian Spyderco Para 3, similar to the Spyderco Dragonfly, and a Swiss Army knife Cadet. When closed is 3.375 inches, or about 8.6 centimeters. Here it is compared with the Griptilian and the Para 3. It has an overall length of 5.62 inches, or about 14.3 centimeters. There it is with the Dragonfly and the Cadet. So, this is a small knife. The blade length is about 2.25 inches. This is the Blade HQ exclusive version with micarta handles. For blade shapes, it comes in with either a sheep's foot blade, which looks like a cleaver, a clip point variation, or in my case, the hawkbill version, which is the only version that has a flipper tab. So it has a short wire clip that's quite discreet and is relatively easy to get into and out of the pocket. Here it is in some comfy sweatpants, and I can assure you that it can hide away in different variations of pants that are less casual and more form-fitting. So let's talk about specifics. In my reviews, I like to go over several points, specifically fit and finish, opening styles, ergonomics, and how it functions with cutting. I wanted to give a good deal of time here to allow you to see for yourself. What does the knife look under different angles? So first, fit and finish. The knife scales, they're well made and they're rounded. And the knife has some nice aesthetics to it. I really like that pop of color, especially since orange is my favorite color. And you can see that color in the pivot collar as well as that back spacer. It also has some nice blade centering as well, and it has that characteristic opening hole that we've seen before from Voxnez designs. I do wish that there was a flipper tab that had some jimping. However, it's easy to actuate since the knife is so small. There's some purposeful jimping at the back spacer as well. And one thing to note as well is that the side screws, it's nice because they're flush. So all that's really protruding is the pivot screw and the clip mounting hardware. So there's the blade with the stonewash finish. It has the MKM logo on the front. The logo size itself is not too large, but given the short and stout blade, it does take up quite a bit of real estate. I really love that jimping on the top portion of the blade that dips down, and it gives just such a nice purchase when you're choking up in that forward position. As you can see here, there's some skeletonization on both sides of the liners as well. If you take a nice little look on those liners, there you go. One thing to note as well is that the liner engagement, if you take a nice look at it, it's nice and thick, which is great. So it's kind of gives you that chance to be a little more confidence inspired, I would say. And that jimping that's on that liner engagement, it's actually purposeful, so that's great. One thing to note is that the detent itself is quite strong. So if you actually see it, when it falls down, the detent itself, it's quite sturdy. And there you go, you see the Vox logo on that side of the blade. It takes up quite a big portion of the blade as well, and it has that N690 cobalt steel, which we'll talk about a bit later. So there's that stonewash blade. It has a nice sheen to it. It's almost satin-like, which is something I appreciate, as you can see it here under direct sunlight. So on to opening methods. Lots of options here, which is wonderful. You can manual open it, you can flick it open, and of course you can spy flick it open as well, using that middle finger, or maybe your index finger, or maybe your ring finger. You can also do more complex methods, I would say, if you want to do an upside down spidey flick. But one thing to note is it's quite difficult because of that detent that I mentioned a bit earlier. However, it's possible if you do add on a strong flick of the wrist. With the flipper tab, I wasn't able to just pull down lightly or light switch it, but you're able to get it open if you do a quick pullback or you do a push button method to build up some pressure. It's not a fast flipper, but there's some authority and sturdiness to it when it opens. Of course, you can access it with both hands as well. And what about ergonomics? Well, one of my all-time favorite small knives is a Spyderco Little Native, and the Isonzo is smaller than the Native, such that when I first got the knife, I did find that the knife, it felt a bit too small for my hands. It was a bit uncomfortable with the point where the back spacer was sitting on my hand as well. However, when holding it in a reverse grip, yeah, it was the same thing. But with several weeks of usage, I actually found that the knife, it just kept getting more and more comfortable when I was holding it in a forward hold or a choked up position. And I would say the rounded edges also added to the comfort. I do want to note though, however, even now during a reverse hold, I do find that there's some hot spots from the back spacer, but I think a part of that is because of my hand size. So how does it fare in use? Well, when I was cutting paper, I didn't find that it cut as well as I hoped, but when I was cutting cardboard, however, I found that the blade, it just felt really sturdy and very confidence-inspiring, and I was able to push down without having discomfort in use. This was a really good surprise for me, so I kind of thought to myself, what if I do a really, really quick sharpen? And I whipped out my sharp maker, and it did just about, I believe it was roughly about 30 passes or so. It took me about a minute. And after that, I would say no issues at all with paper cutting. And in fact, this was actually my first time I sharpened the knife there. And first time I did it with this model, and I was pleasantly surprised at how easy it was to maintain this steel. So what are my final thoughts? Lots to consider here. Aesthetics, fit and finish, opening methods, all great. I do wish that there was less branding on the blade and some rounding of the back spacer as well for comfort. These, I would say, are all relatively minor. However, the price point of the blade is about 110 USD or about 146 Canadian for the variation that I have here. It's about 85 USD or about 113 Canadian for the FRN version. I do wish that it would have more of a premium steel at this price range, and I don't think that's unreasonable to ask given that there are plenty of knives with more premium steels at this price range. At the same time, there's nothing wrong with N690, and it's a very easy to maintain steel. I would say that this knife overall, it's a great package, and if you can get by some of those cons that I noted, then yeah, I think this is a very worthy contender. If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe and follow me on Instagram. I really enjoyed making this video, and I'm glad I spent more time just to get to know that knife. Take care.